Hey everyone, this is just yet another vlog entry for you guys. So today I have a couple things prepared to talk to you all about, and these are just things that I was thinking about today, or that I've just felt really inspired or moved to talk and discuss on or share my thoughts about. So there's a couple or set, there's actually like 7 different words that came to mind, and so the first thing I want to start with is strength, and talking about what that is, or my thoughts on strength. So strength, I'd like to first point out, is not necessarily tied, obviously, just to the physical, but in a sense, everything is always, interconnected. So to a certain extent, yes, physical strength is important, but I think sometimes the physical strength of collapsing in there, forgiving yourself for laying down and just saying, just tired, or just feeling like crap for 3 seconds, that physical, I'm just going to lay on the floor, or I sometimes do this with my yoga mat, where I just lay on my yoga mat and I'm done, for a minute, for practice, for half a second, whatever it felt like I needed to be. I do that, and that practice, or that, I guess, that addition to my practice, so to speak, that mental check, that if I genuinely, legitimately, and I'll get to legitimacy in a little while, feel that I need to feel that and express it, then honoring that or being true to that, there's some integrity in being yourself that way, and I think that there's a lot of strength to do that. Strength and stoicism are two very different things, and I've often experienced moments where, in my life, and for those of you who don't know me, I'll have to share my story another time, I've had to assume the role of being more stoic, and it would turn out, or the resulting, I guess, Kristen that would emerge from those situations would end up losing some strength and metaphorically tearing some ligaments, muscles, etc. So having been through several ligament tears, and I tore both ACLs, I've torn some ligaments in my forearm, I've had 2 knee surgeries, my Achilles tendon was really loose, and things like that, among a few other injuries or breaks and things. The muscle, I lost a 1/4 inch of muscle on my right quad after I had my knee surgery. And don't get me wrong, the surgeon was fantastic. The surgery was helpful, but with that ACL replacement, I tore this part of me because I have a predisposition to it. But with my feet, these are my feet. Sorry, these are my hands, but I was showing with my feet because they go in and whatever. That's another story for another video. And when I lost that muscle, it's still a little bit debilitating, and I'm just now starting to get better about building up that muscle back that I had atrophied. And the thing is that when you think you're being strong and you tear that down, you necessarily not just lose the strength you had, but you lose future strength when you try to muscle through or push through these natural limitations or stopping points that are, I wouldn't say limitations, but these natural stopping points that present themselves, and you have the opportunity to respect the choice and take it, or work against yourself in that sense. So the strength of stoicism, I think, is a very tricky applied method of being, if that makes sense. And what I mean by that is, it's good in the sense to be stoic when I needed to be stoic in a couple situations when we were in the hospital with my brother. And again, the story will reveal itself either through these videos or another separate video. However, after so much time and not enough, so after being stoic and not really balancing that out by taking care of the emotional self that resulted from that stoicism, or what the repercussions of choosing to be stoic, or not choosing, but being in the circumstances where that ended up being the case, without dealing with what that meant, and without being that person that was being stoic, I think that there was a lot of that's where that created a discrepancy in terms of what my strength was versus what I would come to lose as strength as a result of misuse of this. So Aristotle talks about the golden mean, and that there's vices on either side, and the virtue lies in the middle, as a way of being able to as a way to achieve human flourishing, which is a big fancy word for this idea that you are your best self when you are achieving things or going about things by means of existing between these two types of vices. You can have too much courage, too little courage, too much wisdom, too little wisdom, or not, maybe not wisdom in the sense of, you know, you can't, because essentially there are limitations in the circumstantial, whatever. Bad examples aside, or good examples aside, or philosophical examples aside, strength, I think there's a lot of strength in being whatever it is you are, even if no one else is, and not necessarily because no one else is. I mean, that's a whole other discussion. But, for example, in my yoga practice, or in any practice that I have, and I know this sounds like I'm making excuses and stuff, and sometimes this doesn't happen, just for the record, if I feel the need to take, or, you know, when they say, you know, if you, in any time during the practice, feel free to take child's pose, I kind of want to look around the room and say, look, I volunteer, if anybody's shy, to completely go into child's pose also, because I might, if it's part of my practice, or if it's necessary, and I won't be ashamed, so feel free to, you know, how everyone has a little like thing, or groups usually have this little thing where, you know, one person does it and they break the ice for the other ones to do it. So, because I've developed my practice to be to being mentally and emotionally and selfly structured to where I am okay with, you know, giving myself exactly what I need every single time I step on my mat, and not really trying to focus on what I should be doing, and rather like what I need to be existing as, or how I need to move according to my breath, according to myself, according to the centeredness every practice. And that has been really, really helpful in terms of understanding how and who I am in ways that I really didn't think were possible. So there's a lot of strength in not being strong sometimes, literally or physically. You know, if I can't do something during my practice, you know, I take child's pose because I need it. And I mean, I can't do something, and not like every time I can't do a pose or a posture, you know, I just kind of like, you know, cop out in that. But rather, if I can't, because of whatever the case may be, stress, not stress, you know, etc. Here in this teacher training the other day, these hot trainings were really intense, and I didn't think I could make it through, so I ended up just taking the whole practice, or not the whole, but most of the practice after I got to a stopping point, and just laid on my mat and did a couple of the poses, or I did, you know, supine twists, or just whatever else I wasn't really following along with the rest of the group's direction, because I couldn't handle it. I was getting acclimated to New York. There's just all kinds of emotional and mental stress. I had just traveled, and I'm in an unfamiliar place. Sleeping is weird here. I had so much stress from this expectation on myself, you know, worried about not being able to be a good instructor, memorizing the dialogue, and really just failing on my part in terms of the work trade agreement, because I was not qualified, or like, because I hadn't actually taken this hot yoga class or course like ever, and was unfamiliar with not only the poses, the dialogue, the heat that was turned up. They had humidifiers and things like that, and you know, I'm from the valley. There's no need for humidifiers, but you know, the atmosphere was really different, and the floor was warm, and everything was just a lot. And I had been just kind of fighting off allergies or cold or stress, laryngitis, and those aren't excuses. And I don't really agree, respect, or think it's valid if anybody did say they were. In addition to that, you know, my knees were getting acclimated to the heat that was intensified. You know, I have a metal screw in my knee, and I've had 2 knee surgeries. And when the temperature changes, the weather changes, my knees hurt. And because of that difference in pressure change, and not only that, but like, you know, trying to get in these poses and stuff with this Achilles tendon injury, even that I'm still kind of, you know, slowly but surely recovering from. My knee was hurting at some points, and I was really scared, kind of bruised up a little bit, because you know, these types of, don't get me wrong, the hot yoga sequence is actually amazing, and I absolutely love it. I had a fantastic session today with Jess, and I wasn't used to it, and it was a big shock, and it was stressful, and I couldn't, and I felt really uncertain as to how I felt about myself, because I couldn't make it through the practice. You know, here at this training and things like that. I made it through my first hot yoga class. I made it through. Second and third, I did, but I did it the way that I needed to. And to be perfectly honest with you all, it really wasn't received very well. There was one I needed to step out because my knee was, you know, bruising and swelling, and so I stepped out of the heat, because, you know, heat increases that circulation, and made my knee all wonky and swollen, and it was hurting, and, you know, it was one with a screw in there, so it was screwing me up. But I felt like I needed to go in and raise it up over my head and get some ice, and so I went to the dressing room, laid on my mat, finished up the practice by like laying down and getting me leg up over my heart, my head, so I could, send that swelling down. And here's the thing. I know and knew that this training, just like anything new that you start in life, I had heard and believed in a sense that in particular yoga teacher training really is transformative by the very nature of things like yoga. And I was here for the long game, and I am here for the long game. And I'm not about to, on the second or third day, burn myself out or push myself to this limit because I feel like I'm expected to be more than my body's telling me that I can be. But it wasn't really received very well. And not by my instructors or anything. I mean, they were fantastic about it. I really appreciated the lecture that followed a couple of days later that the universe seemed to be, looking out for me with, I guess. But with my peers, and it was a question and things like that, and it was kind of jarring at first because I'm like, hey, just, why the hell do I need to justify myself to anybody? And which brings me to my second thing. So it required a lot of strength to be able to, or the concept of strength and like being strong and pushing through these poses, because they brought up in the posture mechanics, that I was stronger than flexible, and what was my problem? Why couldn't I make it through class? And I was like, well, you could ask me, and if you did, why didn't you accept my answer? Why did you talk to the instructor about this? It's a small group of us. It just didn't make any sense. And I faced away from it. And I was looking at my instructor, and the person was behind me, and was asking this because we were examining each other's posture, and I just kind of was like, what? I mean, that wasn't for me or my benefit, and what's going on? And so this idea of strength, and this person also, coincidentally or not coincidentally, but it is the kind of person that's more strong than they are flexible, which makes, I think, a lot of sense in a holistic view of this whole situation. The resistance to understand, or the lack of belief in what I had to answer, is not my problem, nor is it his responsibility. So there's that little issue. But I think it's because it's largely rooted in the issue of lack of understanding with respect to strength. If I am as strong as I am flexible, it's great. I work my ass off for it, and it's not easy. Nor has it come with yoga practices where I was sloppy or according, like in terms of like oh, I'm gonna muscle through this thing. And look, I created this posture. No, it came with a lot of yoga classes, and you can ask several instructors that have seen me do this, or that saw me when I was starting out. I looked ridiculous. I looked like I was having some sort of breakdown when I was like shaking, I was holding a posture, I was like, my arms wobbly, or I was like moving. Yeah, I looked like I was just on a little machine that was vibrating or something. My muscles shook a lot, and they still sometimes do. Not doing my shoulder stand, which I'll probably have to do this in this video because I've been talking a lot about it. But for shoulder stand, for example, like I work a lot at that posture because it resonates with me, it helps, and that and plow pose really resonate with my creativity. I also work on crow, and I face plant almost every time, and the first time I was able to hold it, I was like, yes, and I lost my joystick and my focus, and proceeded to kind of fall out of the pose. However, I was grateful and it really, really was excited because I was able to achieve that type of strength, and that I was strong enough to hold it even for just a second. That was a part of strength, that was a molecule of strength that I created, and that the universe was able to provide for me to obtain through hard work and perseverance and all these other things. So strength comes in quantities and is also unquantifiable, and it's all these things, but you know it when it's there, and you don't question it, you just build with it. Strength is Danny, my best friend roommate from Baylor, wrote on a post-it, you don't know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have. And I saw that come up recently on my Instagram feed from another person, and when she said that to me, I was honored because I've been told that I'm an emotionally strong person, these things, and sure, yes, I'm grateful that this is thought of, and I was honored that she told me this, but for me, I didn't feel strong. I didn't know that feeling felt like. So that's the issue with strength, is that you may not always feel it, it's unquantifiable, but you should tap into some part of yourself that knows it. And that's like me with my shoulder stand. So I'm so excited because So when I was doing the yoga practice, I'm like, oh, I can't do this thing. And I'm like, yes, I can. Or, I'm afraid I'm going to push myself and tear something again. So my goal or my recent intention or focus, in a sense, has been to be able to push past these things and like get myself to a point. Sorry, this is like the half moon pose because that's one of the ones in particular that kind of instigated this whole thing. To push myself past these points because I can and I should and I need to. And it was the instructor Jess that is a fantastic instructor, or teacher trainer, and also yoga instructor. And she was like, come on, you're stronger than that. I think this morning, if not, it's all one blur. But when she said that, I was like, oh, I can push farther. I can, and it freaked me out because I'm like, oh, why didn't I realize that? Well, it's because I've injured myself, and it's because I don't really know this part, or because I don't know how to use the strength yet. It's a beautiful, beautiful way of understanding yourself, and a part of this transformation that I'm really grateful for, and glad that I get to blog about it. And I'm grateful for the show Grace and Frankie for like giving me this idea, and for everything else that helped me push me to do this video, and everybody who's asked me to, or given me the idea to, because it's nice to be able to vocalize these things, I guess. Anyway, strength. So that's the interesting thing about strength, is it takes strength to build strength, and it also takes strength to understand when you don't have it, which is reinforcing strength. And I think that's something that, again, not a lot of people understand, is when you say, I can't do this yet, and you don't make an excuse for yourself, but you say, this is my stopping point for now, for right in this instance. That's what I do in my yoga practice. That's what I do and I try to implement off my mat as well. It's maybe my stopping point, but I know somewhere deep in whatever this is that I'm not going, that it's legit that I'm saying that, number one. And number two, that I will grow from here. And I need to. I found the point where I'm good. And by good, I mean, not that I didn't challenge myself, but okay, this is where I need to stop, period. No explanations needed. Like, I found the spot where I said, finished. I'm done for the day. I can no longer X. Or I move on from that verb. And so I'm not gonna say, okay, I can't keep running. No, I'm done running. And I know somewhere deep inside me that I'm making that obligation, or I'm not obligation, that necessarily like that focus within myself to say, I will channel this part or this point next time and build. Whether or not I was able to achieve it next time, or anything that happens next is fine, but I will build from this point mentally, in the sense that I'm not going to come in thinking about encumbrances or making excuses. I will take every opportunity that I have to grow and to learn and to shape myself, even if I may be resistant to it at the outset. If someone gives me criticism or something, it may feel weird, it may I may be embarrassed that I did something wrong, or in this case of like a yoga pose or posture, in one of my in the asana aspect of yoga. If I find a stopping point, and I need to, and I know deep down that I need to, that's it. But I know that that in terms of asana, I will push that past the point. I will grow past that point eventually. And that eventually means that I will continue to, when I feel comfortable, when I know for certain in that part of me that I'm listening to that keeps getting stronger to hear but harder to understand sometimes, I will tap into that. And that's what reinforces that inner person and inner self that you have. And when you really listen to your body, I think you listen to the world, and you can hear how you play into these things. So that's a little bit big of a topic, or a little bit big of a rant, but I felt like I really need to talk about strength. So in the next video, I will talk about legitimacy. So